Welcome to HFCL Time Machine. Past, present, future, all connected.
Hello everyone. Today we have Mr. Sitarama Penumetsa. He is the Chief Technology Officer at Candela Technologies. Thank you, sir, for joining us.
Thank you.
Yeah. So over the years, sir, we have seen that you have a very unique perspective of the Wi-Fi industry, and it is not just from the Wi-Fi technology perspective, but also from the validation and testing perspective. So my first question centers around that aspect only, that when you look back over the years and how Wi-Fi generations have evolved, how do you think the testing ecosystem has evolved when you have moved from simpler WLANs and now to more complex technologies like Wi-Fi 7?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So over the years, a lot of things changed with Wi-Fi. So first thing that changed is Wi-Fi evolved from like a background best effort technology to a mission critical technology. So what I mean by that is people were using cellular, Ethernet as the primary way to connect to the internet. At one point, we were using telephone lines and so on, DSL and all of that. But eventually, all of that went away, and Wi-Fi became the primary way of connecting to the internet in the homes and enterprises. So it basically went from a backup technology, best effort technology, to the mission critical technology. That's one aspect that changed a lot. And then the other thing that changed is the diversity that we get with Wi-Fi now. So 10, 15 years ago, a typical home had like maybe one or two devices, maybe a laptop, maybe a phone that connects to the internet, and people would do that in their home office or their living room. So now you have an average US home, and it's happening in India also now, typically has 20, 30 devices, and they're all of different form factors, they're different kinds. You have security cameras, you have doorbells, you have vacuum cleaners, different types of devices using different types of protocols. So you could have a latest Wi-Fi 7 router deployed, but then you still have to deal with the legacy 11B client, doorbell that is sitting outside in your house, right? So now you have to deal with many different types of devices, different types of chipsets, different applications, different distances from the AP, and you also have more denser deployments. You have MDU scenarios where there's a lot of interference. There are other interfering technologies. There are neighboring technologies like UWB, of course. There is Bluetooth, there is Halo, and there's a number of other technologies evolving around Wi-Fi that makes the ecosystem very complicated. Very interesting. Yeah.
I'm glad you talked about the complications in the ecosystem, and that's where my next question centers around this. Specifically, with the summit also talked about is Wi-Fi 7, and with new features like MLO, having a 320 megahertz of bandwidth and preamble puncturing. What do you think has been the hardest aspect of, from a testing perspective, what has been the hardest part in terms of testing these features from that ecosystem perspective?
Yeah, so testing anything new as an engineer, like when these technologies are quite complex, it's very fascinating. So first to make sure the technology is actually working. During the early stage, it's very early stage, so a lot of issues you'll see with the products. So testing and figuring out that it's actually working in the first place or not is the first big challenge. Once you make sure it's working, is it working in all different scenarios and all different combinations of things. So as the technology evolved, it added many layers. So we started with MIMO, and then we went to multi-user MIMO, then we went to OFDMA, then we went to MLO, and we had aggregation. So now if you take all these different dimensions, aspects, all working together, you're adding so many layers of complexity. So one of the biggest challenges that at least I've seen is, one, of course, test to make sure that these features are working by themselves, standalone. So if you want to do an MLO test, you can do an MLO test and make sure MLO is working. But how is MLO affecting roaming?
Right.
Or how is MLO affecting dynamic frequency selection or band steering? So now when you take this new technology and put it when look at it in regards to the previous technologies that are supposed to work, that creates very complex, interesting problems. That's where we saw a lot of issues from our testing, especially.
So you also touched based upon the diversity in terms of client ecosystem, where we see that it's not just user devices, but you also have a very diverse IoT ecosystem where you have simpler devices to more complex devices which require certain difference in their working. So do you think the Wi-Fi industry has done justice to at least maintain interoperability and make sure that these IoT devices do get their share of interoperability and they are working fine in this Wi-Fi ecosystem?
Yeah, so regarding interoperability, of course, one thing is there can always be standards bodies that are doing standardization around interoperability. We have Wi-Fi Alliance and other groups that are trying to do that. Now, but the way the industry is evolving and the number of devices and the diversity of devices that you're getting, it's evolving much more rapidly than how than how you can create standards. So by the time you create a test plan, you create a use case around a use case, then you have 10 new use cases already, right? So it's hard to keep up, and especially when you're trying to do standardization around testing, it takes time because you have to have so many parties involved to agree upon a particular test case. So by the time you do that, there's always new use cases that are coming out. So yes, the industry is trying to keep up, but the industry is also evolving faster than the rate at which you can keep up, in my opinion. So,
great insights. So I think from an AI perspective, and it is touch basing in every domain, and we have seen that AI is still figuring out its way into the Wi-Fi industry, but it is prone to being introduced in every layer of Wi-Fi. How do you see AI being affecting its from the testing ecosystem? How does it that make sure that AI is getting pre-planned into your testing ecosystem? How do you see AI shaping it?
No, most of our customers that I talk to, they're all, of course, already using AI a lot. So I was talking to some of the developers today, and one of the developers, Wi-Fi developers, saying that they didn't write code in the last 6 months. They're using AI to actually write the code, right? So, which is great progress that they're able to do that. So, it is basically developers are starting to use AI more to write code. Test engineers are actually developing test plans and even running tests and even debugging issues. And even automating stuff using AI in many ways. So that is naturally happening with most of our companies that we sell our products to. From how we are looking at AI, we are also looking at how we can implement AI in advanced analysis. If you look at a lot of how do we troubleshoot Wi-Fi issues. As a test company, we are very interested in troubleshooting issues, right? So how can we implement AI in better troubleshooting problems and trying to get to the root cause analysis without having to use a lot of human intelligence and bandwidth. So that's one of the areas we're looking into. And of course, like every other company, we are using AI in developing test plans, doing our own development work and so on, right? So it is becoming a very integral part of everything that we're doing, in my opinion.
Okay, so something beyond technology, and I think it is very much visible from the social presence Candela has, and it has been somewhere the forefront of roping in young talent into the Wi-Fi industry. So what do you think will be important aspects to maintain and sustain that interest in young Wi-Fi professionals who are coming into the industry? How do you think we have to generate that interest and to sustain that interest in the Wi-Fi industry so that we rope in more talent going further?
Yeah, so Wi-Fi is, I mean, when we employ a lot of young people in our company. Almost 100% of Candela employees directly come from colleges. So the first challenge, of course, is there is not enough academic coursework and things like that teach Wi-Fi. Forget Wi-Fi, they don't even teach networking that much, right, in core curriculum that we have. So whoever comes to us, we train them from scratch. And we have a very different way in which we engage with young people. We don't have a scheduled training or anything, because then that creates dependency. So if there is an entire training program that I create, then they depend on the training program, right? So the modern way of learning is not to actually give them a lot of information, is to just inspire them. The information they can get, that's something that's available everywhere. So anyone who joins us, we give them real work from day one. We say there is no specific training. You train yourself, you go do this work, and wherever you get stuck, come to us, we'll help you, right? So from day one, if you're able to give the independence to these youngsters and also give them a lot of autonomy and give them the freedom to make mistakes and actually help them out when they make mistakes, then they can naturally kind of get interested in what they're doing. So my opinion, the best way to get people interested is give them the freedom and let them do their thing, right? And that's what worked out really well for us.
Freedom to make mistakes. Yes, I think that is a very good way to end this interview. Thank you for having us here, sir, and good luck.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks, Rai.
You've been listening to HFCL Time Machine. For more conversations like this, find us on LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube.